What's up everyone, Drew and Cars here. Welcome back to another episode of What's in the Garage. On this episode, we have the blue truck back in the garage again. I've got a handful of upgrades that I did to it. Some of them I needed, some of them I wanted, some of them I just wanted to test out. So let's get into it. Get the body off this thing and let's take a look at what we did. So right off the get-go, I don't know if you can notice this. Sorry about that noise in the background. My puppy's playing with one of her toys. But motor's in a different spot. I got another servo. New transmission. So this transmission is basically a knockoff of the Vanquish Hertz Dig transmission. I got it off of AliExpress. I want to say it's maybe in the $20 to $30 range. Pretty cheap. Sorry for the pause. I had to look up who I watched a video from. Exocaged RC did a review of an Amazon version of this transmission, and if you go over to his channel and check that video out, you'll see him tear apart the transmission, break it down, and compare it to the actual Vanquish version. Basically what it boiled down to was a couple of bearing sizes were a little bit different, and this shaft for the shifter linkage just has a looser tolerance on it, essentially. The AliExpress one that I got, the gear plate that the spur gear mounts to, it's a little wonky. It like ever so slightly wobbles. Doesn't mess with the gear mesh at all. I've ran it back and forth a handful of times, and so far it's not making any extremely weird noises, and it's crawling pretty fine. I am gonna have to find a better gear ratio. I believe I'm on a 18 tooth in pinion and 54 tooth spur gear. So it's extremely slow. I lost a lot of top end speed with it originally being the 1-speed transmission, and this being also a 1-speed transmission, and having a low kV motor. I've only got 1,000 kV in it. I had to, try and play around with the gearing that I had. I bought a couple spurs. I got a Yeah Racing one. It didn't fit, so I can't use that. The spur gear that comes with the transmission is like an 85 or 86 tooth. It was just extremely crazy. So I've got a couple more gears that I'm going to play around with. I've got some coming in a couple of days that I'm going to test out. And we'll see if I can get the speed up a little bit. Now, this whole transmission setup, I'll get a brief running video just so you guys can see what it looks like here in a minute. This is the one that I wanted to test out. It wasn't a necessity or requirement or something I needed to do, but the servo was. While I was messing with it, got everything hooked up, the electronics and everything done, situated. My old servo, the Flash Hobby 65 kg that I used to have, it took a crap on me. So stopped at the hobby store, grabbed me this NSDRC RS500B servo. I think it's about a 30 kg-ish, so about half of what I used to run, but it's got plenty of power. It's also direct power, wired in straight off the battery, so it's got plenty of torque for this truck. To run the transmission, the transmission in the dig unit, I had to swap to my DX5C. It's a better remote than the stock Traxxas one anyways, or a TQ. I had it on the TQI. I tried messing with the TQI, but you can't set endpoints on auxiliary channels with the TQI radio, so I had to switch to my DX5C. Receiver I went with is just a basic 3-channel receiver. It's the Spectrum SR315. It's just literally got throttle, steering, and one auxiliary channel. So In the future, I can't add a whole bunch of crazy buttons and stuff. Right now, I just have the dig unit set up on the G switch. I press it once, shifts the servo, press it again, it goes back. But the servo is, it's like roughly $60. I sold my transponder for the Techno that I used to race, and the money just went towards basically the new servo and the receiver. Moving on, I got new Endura brass C-hub carriers and Endura, I think they're 90-gram outer portal boxes. This was the somewhat necessity. The receiver definitely was. I went with these because I used to have that brass bumper mount that had a little bit of weight up front, and as you guys know, it broke off recently, so I don't have it anymore, and my truck kept rolling back. I had it pretty much dialed in, perfect weight balance. I threw it on some scales, and it was like 62% up front, which is really good. Generally, you want about 60. So, got brass down low now, so should help keep the axle settled when I'm crawling uphill. Other than that, that's all that's changed. I mean, it's quite a lot actually, but yeah. I'll go over everything I needed to do to convert it to the 3-gear transmission. This is actually an SCX10 skid plate for like a LCG flat skid. The bolt holes for the Endura chassis, they line up perfectly. Now it is missing one. The Traxxas one had 3 holes. It was the 2 outer ones and 1 inner one. But having 4 instead of 6 is fine. I'm okay with that. I just went ahead and repositioned it so you can see a little bit better. I finally switched. As you can see, this link has the nut on the inside. I switched them around because it was eating into the center section of the drive shaft. To get everything to fit, I had to cut down a section of the drive shaft, and I cut off part of the center shaft as well. I'm definitely going to get new drive shafts later on that'll actually fit. I swapped to a long tube on the rear and then put new heat shrink, that way the center section doesn't fall out. I'm also going to get a new rear drive shaft so it also doesn't fall out or anything, doesn't cause any weird binding. This will get me through temporarily. Like I said, I've ran it around in the garage and it works. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it works. And one last thing I had to do to get the Traxxas drive shafts to fit on this transmission, best way I can describe it is the end of this output shaft is a little bit longer on this transmission, and when I was tightening the set screw for the drive shaft, it would bind up and the pivot ball would just get stuck and it bound up. So I had to take my Dremel and I just ground off the tip of the new transmission. Now it's free, everything doesn't bind anymore, and it's good to go. This is the old skid setup, the Endura skid, carbon fiber front plate or motor mount with the aluminum skid, and it's a lot shorter, and this actually recesses in a little bit. The skid plate is actually wider, this one is, than the Traxxas style one that Endura came with. So my frame rails are actually spread out right now. If I were to unbolt the skid plate, it would actually sit flush to the outside of the frame rails, but it fit in there with a little bit of squeezing, bolted down, and I think it's going to work really well. So let me flip this thing back over, hook the battery, and show you how the dig unit works. All right, battery's in. The throttle, or not the throttle, the servo endpoints I had to set. It shifts out into the dig mode, nice and easy. Sometimes when I shift, you can kind of hear the servo. You just have to bump the throttle and it'll fully shift, and then it'll take the strain off the servo again. But so right now it's in 4-wheel drive. I can't really steer it because I don't have a thumb steer anymore. But now only the front spins. And it works in reverse too. We'll just lock up the rear end. And it'll just drag the rear tires. Now this is helpful if you're new to RC crawling. When you're up on a vertical incline and you're trying to get your front tires are almost up and over, sometimes your rear axle will keep driving, and it'll keep driving in and it'll flip you backwards. So what dig does is you basically just drag the tires and use the front to help you crawl over an obstacle. So I think this is a pretty cool setup. I just wanted to get creative with the truck and see what I could do. So tomorrow, after I go to the swap meet at a local hobby town, we're gonna go crawling, and I'll take this out here and we'll get on the trail and see how it does. Stay tuned. Oh no. We're back in the garage. This is actually a couple weeks after the start of the video, so there's been quite a bit of a change to the garage. The Techno is gone. My drift car is done. Just needs a body. Slash has got new wheels and tires, and an F100 body I need to finish painting. I was gonna paint it fluorescent pink, ran out of paint, so moving on. I went ahead and got an Endura front drive shaft. I measured the fully collapsed and fully extended lengths of the Traxxas drive shaft. I found that Endura had one that was perfect for what I needed. Went ahead and ordered it. It's not a split design where there's a center section and then two halves. It's just basically just two halves, no center section. So you've got your U-joint and your spline shaft, and then your U-joint and your recessed part of the shaft that it fits into. I do need to get a rear one. I want to measure and then get me another Endura drive shaft. It seems to be holding up pretty well so far. In addition, of course, you know, it's a couple weeks later now after the start of this video. Stubbs RC, he had a extra laser cut aluminum set of frame rails. This is basically the Endura chassis, but in aluminum instead of carbon fiber. That'll help me get the front section of my chassis back. Then I can put a bumper mount back on it, and I'm thinking about doing a bumper on the front and back, potentially running this as a comp truck. After running this a couple times now, I'm absolutely loving the dig unit. It's really hard to make a video focus on using dig. I end up catching myself kind of using it on the fly. What I realized was that a lot of times I'm using it to resettle the front suspension. I'm on an incline like I showed you guys before, and I notice it's starting to rock back. I put it in dig. I have traction in the front, and it sucks the axle back up, settles the front end down, and then I click out of dig, keep going, and I'll kind of work it back and forth between dig and four-wheel drive. The process of trying to find a line that I can't do without dig and doing it with dig ended up being a lot harder than I thought. So I threw in the one video where I used dig several times to help me get up an obstacle. Now I know at the very end I failed, but I'll throw in another clip of me actually making it, which is the first time I've ever made that line, which is really exciting for me. But I'm absolutely loving this dig setup. But anyways, I was talking to a couple of guys while I was on the trail, and this isn't really much of a TRX4 anymore, let alone a TRX4 Sport. So what do you guys think? At what point does a truck stop being what it started out as? The guys I was talking to said once you get rid of the transmission and the axles, it's really not that particular model anymore. Some people say once you get rid of the axles, it's not that model anymore. Some people say once you get off the stock rails, it's not that model anymore. And this thing is just a basket case of random parts now. It's got basically an axial style transmission, an axial style center skid, but it has the Traxxas axles. It has, you know, a flat rail chassis. It's not the C-channel chassis anymore, full frame. It's carbon fiber. Doesn't have the, you know, stock shocks anymore. Doesn't have the stock servo. Doesn't have stock electronics, other than, if you want to count, the stock steering servo that it came with is now my dig unit servo. So what do you guys think? How far does a truck have to go before you stop calling it what it started out as? I was joking with them. I started calling it a SCRX4 instead of a TRX4 or an SCX10. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I only got one good, you know, running clip of it. I'm hoping that in the future, running this truck in general, you kind of catch me using dig every now and again, and you'll kind of see where it comes in handy. But like I previously mentioned, it's hard to find a line and focus on, you know, not being able to make it up unless I use dig. I find myself getting put into spots where I can't make it up unless I have dig, but only because I lined up my truck a certain way. It's hard to do it the exact same line every single time. But other than that, I'm really loving the way this truck has turned out. Can't wait to get the aluminum swapped over, get my bumper mount back on, get front and rear bumpers made for it, and then potentially running it in a couple comps. I don't know how I'd film that. I know I'm going to need a servo, so I might have to ditch that 3-channel I was running and put a 5-channel or a 4-channel in there. That way I can, have a servo winch installed, or I could get me another one of them Traxxas winches, but those are ridiculously overpriced for what they are. Nonetheless, let me know what you guys are working on. Tell me what you think I should do with the body. Should I keep running it? Should I get another one? I've had an anvil body on back order. Man, I think I've been waiting on it for like 3 months now. And it's not even supposed to be here till next month. So I've just been running the, well, I guess you could count this as another stock thing. It's just all chopped up now. But I really don't know what I want to do with the body. I got that J Concepts anvil body, and I've been waiting a long time for it, and it still hasn't showed up. So I might just go in a different route and either cancel that order or wait for it to get here and potentially put it on another truck. I'm not sure yet. I'm thinking if I don't wait for the anvil body and I don't want to run this anymore, I almost want to get a 3rd gen Tacoma body to match my real truck, and then kind of chop it up and either get one that has a detachable bed and do a cab only version, or kind of chop it like this is, where it's exposed in the back, and run it kind of like that. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. There we go. First time I've ever made that line.